Today we're going to be taking a look at Galaga.
What?
Hot take.
Namco.
What you got there, Shane?
This is the Galaga arcade cabinet from the folks at Numskull and Quarter Arcades. This is essentially a one-to-one recreation of the original Galaga arcade machine. A little bit smaller, but not small enough. I mean, this is still a pretty big machine, like, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it's the right size. This is a quarter scale arcade, and I find it's the right point between. We've seen a lot of arcades in recent years with the resurgence of kind of the arcade, I don't even know what to call it, phenomenon, just people loving arcades. And we've seen them from like the ones that you can actually put in your pockets all the way to a full-blown replica. But this is the good, comfortable size that I can put on my desk and actually play it comfortably with a good size screen.
Pretty much. So this was sent in to us from Numskull, and they also sent in another one earlier that we covered on our Rerez channel, which was Pac-Man. So these are essentially the same size. These are big, little small machines. I mean, we've seen other ones that are a little bit smaller than these and even teenier than these, but like these are big enough where you don't strain your eyes looking at the screen. The controls are decent enough that they work just like the originals do. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Like even like the things that you would imagine would happen, like the light up marquee happens on here. Same thing happens with Pac-Man as well. A little button at the bottom there. You've got volume control, a nice bright backlit screen. These are all the things you'd want. You can play this in the dark. You can play this during the daytime. You're not gonna have issues. The sound is nice and loud. On the bottom here, on the bottom of the actual marquee, there's a speaker grill that shoots down and reflects the sound off the screen just like the original arcade cabinets do. So this is doing a lot of the things you would hope for it to do. And believe it or not, when I say one-to-one recreation of what the original is like, this is pretty much one-to-one, like down to the tinier details. Turn this thing off. On the back, you can see that there's like the grills back here, just like you would have seen in the original machines. You've got the little vents for airflow and a little bit for sound as well, but it's all here. I like this detail that they put in the front. They actually have the little bumper at the bottom. Yeah. Where people would have been like kind of kicking the machine, and this, I assume, is there to protect it. It's like a little rubber padding. Well, I mean, I guess if you were to actually kick this one in that same spot, you'd probably break it in half.
Well, don't kick the little arcade. That's cruel.
Well, anyway, these Galaga, these machines are a part of a big trend where a lot of companies are recreating original arcade machines in various form factors. We've seen it from Arcade 1-Up, which is a little bit more of a larger scale setup and kind of recreates more of the original system's design, though it's just tiny enough where you could kind of sit at it or use a riser to bring it up. We saw the Replicade competitor on the market, which was I forget the name.
That was the Street Fighter one about that you and Adam talked about in an episode previously. Yeah, now those guys are doing their own kind of thing. These are actually bigger than those ones. So believe it or not, even though they kind of look roughly around the same size, these are just a little bit bigger. But what's important about these ones here is that there is no, I want to say, limitations to what they've done. It's smaller, but that doesn't mean that the controls are in any way lackluster. These feel very, very good. For instance, on this Galaga one, if you look at the move left and right there, that joystick will only move left and right, and it's bound by the wood design in the center there, so that it only moves left and right, just like the original Galaga cabinet. The fire button has a nice feel to it. It's not very clicky, but it's something that I think works for what it is. There is like a little bit of a soft push down on it, but it works. It just feels like a good button. Same thing with the first player and second player buttons. And on the front gate there, you also have a coin insert button, so you can insert coins. Actually start it up. Yeah. And then you have a volume dial as well, right?
Yes.
To control the volume on these things?
Yeah, and that's all the way at the back.
Right. So now you actually played you used to play Galaga quite a bit.
Yes, I did.
So how does it compare to the original experience or game? I don't know, both. The experience and the game, because you are playing on a much smaller piece of hardware here.
Yes. All right. So I've played Galaga not only in arcades on an original Galaga machine produced by Namco all the way back, and I'm not talking about the remaster releases or anything like that. I mean an original Galaga cabinet. They weren't that uncommon, you know? And I used to play it on NES. It's one of my all-time favorite arcade games. I've always found it to be very fun, mostly because I saw a lot of people playing Space Invaders or Galaxian, and I thought those were boring compared to this. Now, this
is the original arcade ROM. One thing that you would get in the arcades is the ability to modify the settings, the difficulty, and all that stuff. The reason they allowed creator or owners at the arcade to do that was to get as many coins from you as possible.
Those fiends!
Yeah. So what they've done is they've created an option on here. When you see the initial boot screen, you push the first player and the second player button at the same time, and you get access to a bunch of settings where you can modify the difficulty, modify your bonus, and a whole bunch of other things. It's actually a very good feature to see that. Something we don't see on arcade 1-up machines all that often in the original run. Things have changed with all these companies. They're starting to add more features. But if you're looking for a portable recreation of the original Galaga arcade version, that's what this is. But it's not exactly the same. Now, unfortunately, I don't have an original Galaga machine to just go back and play right now, but if I've done a pretty decent emulation through MAME or utilizing any of Namco or Bandai's recreations of Galaga most recently, where they've offered official ports and official MAME variations and stuff like that, I find that at least the emulated versions I've played are running better than this.
So when you say running better, is it the controls, the responsiveness? What feels a little off to you on this one?
It's really difficult to kind of like pinpoint it, but I played this on the medium difficulty. I didn't switch the difficulty around because I really wanted to just get the original experience as close as I could. From what I can tell, the game is running a little bit slower, maybe just a tiny bit slower. And if it isn't running slower, then it's the sound effects seem to be just a little bit off. I don't know if it's a speaker issue, and I don't know if it's the sound influencing my gameplay, right? Because that can happen.
Yep.
All I can tell you, though, is that where I am typically pretty decent at Galaga, where I can clear the first couple stages, and when it comes to the challenging stage, I always beat the challenging stage. The first challenging stage is not difficulty. Basically, a whole bunch of enemies throw at you. They don't shoot at you or anything. You just have to know where to be to shoot at them.
Right.
I'm always good at those. But for some reason, with this version of the game, I'm just not good at it. And I think that it has to do something with the way that this game is performing on this hardware. It's just not exactly like the original. That doesn't mean it's unplayable. It just means that I have to kind of conform the way I would have typically played it and modified my take. And unfortunately, for people that are looking to get that exact same recreation from arcades, that might put them off a little bit.
Right. So there's a bit of a learning curve. If you're going to get this, you're not going to have that same skill that you had on the original arcade.
Yes. And that's... I mean, like, you're looking at these things like, this is what these are for. These are for people like me, video game nerds who remember playing these and want one for home and one that you can fit in your home. Several of them.
Or right next to your computer. I know one of the product shots, it shows it right there on your desk next to your computer, which looks beautiful.
Yes.
And it even feels solid. And I don't know if we can really convey that through camera here. Just like if you tap it on the side, like everything about it feels solid.
Yeah, this is like, it's a wood construction. They've done a very good job at recreating the original aspects of the arcade machine. I mean, it is a wonderful look, wonderful sound, wonderful visuals. I don't think there's anything really wrong with the screen or anything like that. But, when I'm thinking about playing Galaga nowadays, I want the arcade stick to be a little bit bigger. Like, this is really cool, but the novelty of all of these, having seen so many of them, is actually starting to wear thin on me. And I don't know, like, if you don't own any of these, and there's one game from the series that you're interested in, whether it be Pac-Man, Galaga, or any other ones that these companies are releasing, if you're interested in it, pick that one up. But one thing I noticed with the Street Fighter 2 machine that we took a look at the other day was that one had a controller, a secondary controller that you can take out.
Controller,
yes. So when you do that, you can just sit the controller anywhere and play it comfortably. With this, when it's on the desk, you kind of have to be up like this, and your hands have to be in like this really weird position like that to play. And it's fun for a little bit, but I would never want to play more than a couple of minutes.
When you play with this joystick, do you grab it kind of like a traditional one, like between the thumb and the index, or do you just use your thumb to control it like a controller?
Yeah, so you can kind of control it that way, like with your thumbs. I think you could do that, and you could probably have a pretty decent time with it. But for me, because I remember playing it more like with two hands, I find myself kind of holding it like that and tapping.
I don't know as you.
Yeah.
And I just noticed looking at the Pac-Man one and the Galaga one, actually, I don't know if this is an indication of the original, but the joystick here sticks out quite a bit more than the Galaga one.
Yeah.
So
common thing though, right? This is not like Galaga machines. The way those sticks are made, they might actually, because there's so many variations of those machines. Some of them have shorter sticks, so it's not uncommon to see that. But because of this one being a little bit longer,
easier to hold.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can get your finger kind of under there and you have like a little bit of hold, but here it's like right at the base and it's kind of just a little bit shorter and
it's a bit more nubbish.
Yes,
if that's
nubbish.
The word.
that's the
Whereas
word. Whereas
this one, it does feel, I don't know, a little bit more traditional. I like this joystick here myself.
Yeah. This is a very strange scenario. I don't know. There comes a point when you look at these arcade machines and we get to an era where getting those games running in a portable form factor with the complex controls becomes something you can't really do. Like, I don't see these ever getting to a point where we have like Area 51, like a little teeny Area 51 with a little tiny light gun and stuff like that. I don't think you'd see that because the tech
adorable.
It would be, but it'd be weird. And I think that these are really cool novelties. I don't think they replace the original feel of playing those games. As much as I like Pac-Man. Pac-Man came at me when I was playing that one, and it made a lot more sense when it arrived. But this one, even though I like Galaga more than Pac-Man, it doesn't feel 100%. And if you're gonna be recreating something to this detail, you should get the feel of the game as close as you can. And it's unfortunate because, you know, for people out there that have played Galaga, maybe you grew up playing the NES one. Maybe you grew up playing any of the variations that existed on the TurboGrafx. If you played any of those games or even modern emulations, this game might not feel exactly as you want it to feel. And because of that, it's going to throw people off.
Right.
I don't know how many people nowadays are going to want to buy a little arcade system to set on their desk to play one specific game. At least with like a machine like this, multiple games could be worth it. But we're looking at like hundreds of dollars for these things.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, that can be an issue for people, especially if you're thinking about just hundreds of dollars to play Galaga, right?
Well, I think that's the thing. You said it's a novelty, and that's what it is. It's really for those who identify with this and that want that decor in their home because they're well known to be a big arcade lover, and that's just a piece that they can show off and kind of when they have friends over and just say like, this is mine. If you want to play these games, of course there's a lot more efficient, cost-saving ways to play them. But what this is a novelty. Now, that said, there is one thing to consider with the Pac-Man one. I know it did, for anyone who cares about this, and when it comes to collector, the Pac-Man one came with a certificate because they had a limited run of 10,000 units. It looks like with the Galaga one, that isn't the case. I don't know how many they made.
Yeah, we don't really know.
It did not come with a certificate, and it's not even advertised as that. So that's something if anyone cares on the collector side.
I don't know if they're going to be making them forever, but like what we've seen is that I believe you can still get the Pac-Man machine, even though we said it was limited way back when we talked about it. But Galaga, I think it's just there's going to be people out there that slowly get these over time and have them as collectible items. But folks, what did you think? Did you have a lot of fun with the Galaga machine seeing that? Do you think that's something you'd actually want to own in your house? Or do you believe that Galaga should be just MAME emulated nowadays and played on modern systems like the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One? Let us know what you think in the comments below.
See you next time.